So my name is Saif Ahmed. I'm an oncologist at Addenbrooke Hospital, and I'm a cancer researcher at the University of Cambridge. And I co-founded 52 North Health in 2018, having seen the experience of cancer patients on chemotherapy and wanting to improve their healthcare journey. I'm going to start off with a short story about a cancer patient I looked after some years ago. We'll call her Susan. And she had breast cancer, she was on chemotherapy, and she had a fever. And she called in, and I advised her to come into hospital as quickly as possible in case she might have been developing neutropenic sepsis, or NS. And NS is a life-threatening complication of chemotherapy-induced immunosuppression. And any cancer patient around the world who had a fever would be advised the same thing: come into hospital as soon as possible. But Susan hesitated, and that's because she had to sort out childcare for her kids. She wouldn't get paid if she didn't finish her day's work. And just 3 weeks ago, she came into hospital. Same thing happened. It was 3 hours in A&E, had blood tests, and then they came back and said, oh, no, you weren't at risk of NS anyway, and discharged back home. And so sadly, when Susan came in, she was actually quite poorly. She ended up in intensive care. Thankfully, she came through, but NS kills 1,000 people across the UK each and every year. And we need to provide better care for those patients like Susan, and also those 50,000 patients who come in every year who didn't need to. It's wasting unnecessary healthcare resource. So that's where NutriCheck comes in. And this is the world's first and only low-cost solution that can identify patients who are truly at risk of NS. So those at high risk can receive life-saving antibiotics quickly, and those at low risk can stay out of hospital and be managed in the community. And this low-cost finger-prick-based blood test is the only way that we can measure both blood cells and sepsis marker levels in a rapid and reliable way in the patient's home. And alongside that, we're working with large NHS-based data sets, curating them, looking at biomarkers associated with demographics and symptoms, using AI-based tools to further be able to identify how, alongside the NutriCheck result, how we can precisely assess a patient's risk of poor outcomes for these patients. And together, that will enable us to save up to 1,000 lives across the UK, reduce thousands of hospital visits, saving the NHS tens of millions of pounds, and this would be extrapolated globally. We've received £2.5 million in grant funding today. And just a few weeks ago, we were the first ever company that Macmillan Cancer Support, in its 100-plus year history, made an equity investment in. And we were at Cedars-Sinai in the US just a few weeks ago also, talking about our solution. It really resonated across in the US healthcare space as well, as things move toward value-based healthcare. And alongside countless NHS trusts and ICSs here in the UK are really keen to adopt our innovation in the longer term. And so what we are going to develop is a market-leading technology company developing clinical decision support tools. We project that we will raise revenues well over 100 million in 5 years' time. And so what I ask you, Dragons, and the wider audience is to support us. And for the Dragons, we're looking to raise around £5 million as an equity investor to take us through our later stage clinical trials, take us through into commercialization with a particular focus on accelerated US market entry. And so I would like you all to support us in changing stories such as Susan's that I told you about earlier, and help reinvent the healthcare journey for cancer patients around the world. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sai.
So one of the things that I picked up there was, as you're talking about NutriCheck, I'm immediately thinking, okay, how do we get this across, all of the trusts for all of the chemotherapy patients in the UK? But then you immediately sort of said what we're looking for the next investment is for the next group of things. So we can set up a business that has got a lot more, I got the impression you've got a lot more products in the pipeline. Is that the case, or are you going to focus on distribution of NutriCheck first of all?
Yeah, so there's two levels to it. So really the focus is around getting NutriCheck as quickly as possible to as many patients as possible. That's the real next thrust. And so that's what that funding will primarily support, is working within the NHS and wider to get that out. But actually this solution that we've developed, which is patented, that measures blood tests blood cells in a low-cost way, that can be applied to lots of different things. It can be applied to other patients as well, such as those on like rheumatoid arthritis drugs that have a similar thing, but you need to develop
same
different
concept.
trials. Yeah,
it's blood. blood testing. Thank you.
Yeah.
One more question, Hetty.
Okay, 2 questions in one. First is really interesting. 2 questions. One is what clinical pathway will actually change as a result of this? Is there enough accuracy in your tool to enable true pathways to change and confidence in that? And the second is what stage of clinical trial are you at?
Yeah, so what an excellent question. So we're working nationally, actually, with Macmillan, the UK Sepsis Trust, doing a Delphi study looking at how the pathway would change on a national level within the UK. And our diagnostic accuracy is well over 99%. So we prioritise for sensitivity, and our specificity is actually 98, but even if that dropped a little bit in our largest scale studies, then that would be very accessible. And in terms of our clinical trials, so we're sort of going through our clinical validation studies, which you need for the CE marking. So we've got that protocols all going through ethics and things like that, and that'll be later this year, hosted by Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge.
Thank you.
Yes, Viv, go on.
I've got a question. Do you intend to give this? I mean, would the model be that somebody comes in with chemotherapy and they're given one of these things to take home with them?
Yeah, absolutely. We've done a lot of work with patients as to when we should interact with them, because it's so overwhelming when they start on this journey. But it would be that they would receive this treatment as part of sort of the workup prior to starting chemotherapy. There's a bit of a lag time there. They can be shown when they're in the day unit how to use it. We've done a lot of work with nurses, how that would work. And really, what we're also doing alongside the app and the digital solution alongside it is a lot of education around not just, about this test and what it means, but just around wider sort of symptoms when you feel unwell. Because sadly, too many people are dying or getting really unwell because of chemotherapy-related side effects. And that's just going to grow as more people are on treatment.
Okay,
Good.
thank you.
OK, Saif, take your seat. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Nick Gompertz. I'm a former GP, an ex-NHS doctor for 30 years, and founder now and CEO of EarSwitch. And we are providing the first racially agnostic oximetry from earphones. COVID-19 has really demonstrated a massive health inequality that is global, in that the finger oximeter that we're all used to using is inaccurate in people with dark skin. And so really, unfortunately, some people with the most severe COVID have been undertreated if they've got non-white skin colour. And we're addressing that with Earmetrics. Our Earmetrics site detects oximetry from your outer ear, in your ear canal, where it's not pigmented irrespective of your skin colour. So our working prototypes are earphones that pick up not just your oxygen levels, but also a live pulse waveform, your heart rate variability, respiratory rate, and also we're working with Queen Mary's University London to put on a digital blood pressure surrogate there as well. So all your clinical validation in one site, in an easily wearable solution. So we're working on 2 solutions. One is a 1mm square sensor that will be embedded in standard audio headphones. So you get continuous biometrics from ordinary audio headphones, but also in hearing aids. The second is to put our sensors into ear thermometers. So your ear thermometer no longer just does your temperature, it also does all your clinical observations in one go. This is a large global market. The medical device market is estimated to increase in value to £11.2 billion in 2027. And we want to access this market by licensing it to the big tech incumbents in this area. Earmetrics was born in the willingness to help people with motor neuron disease. We started off by helping people with MND communicate through their ear. And when we actually put our sensors in the ear, which we actually found out we were picking up biometrics as well. So we now have, over the last 2 years, 7 grants awarded, totaling almost £2.5 million, the largest from the NIHR for the motor neuron disease switch. But now we're focusing on the Earmetrics, because we feel that this is a need that needs to be taken forward. And we want to accelerate this with a Series A round of £10 million, and that will be split into 2 sections. One is to progress our technology play and our license and marketing play. And by the way, we have GB patent granted on the EarSwitch and a portfolio of 8 international patents pending. And the second is our data strategy, because obviously we're getting lots of valuable data, and we want to provide that together to give individual patient insight, population insights, and obviously that will lead straight into hospital at home and virtual wards. So really, if you're interested in helping address global health inequality, the next stage of biodiagnostics, or wish to invest in us, then please come and see me at the stand or ask me some questions now. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nick. Well done. I'm sorry, before a question. How amazing that a frontline NHS GP has addressed an inbuilt discrimination into medical technology that shouldn't exist. Everyone, it doesn't matter how much pigment is in your skin, should get the same readings. And that's why I'm backing you, and we have to make it happen.
So, on that, I was just going to ask, how much is the difference?
It's been estimated, well, the problem is the difference is at low oxygen levels. So at normal oxygen levels, there's no difference. But at low oxygen levels below about 92, which is obviously the critical level, that's where you get the difference. And the FDA and also the UK Department of Health has actually predicted the difference is about 4 points. So someone could have oxygen saturation 89%, where they obviously need oxygen antivirals and steroids, but it would come up at 93% and they'd be discharged home from hospital with no treatment.
Any other questions from the panel? Yes, Hetty. Oh, Steve, go ahead, Steve.
Nick, pulse oximetry is something that I'm quite passionate about, so integrating red and infrared via Bayes' law to shine through an erythrocyte to get ourselves a result is commonplace for me.
Sure.
Wearable, it is a saturated market. So yes, you're going to put something in for a limited period of time, but I don't get it. Sorry, Tony.
Sure. We get massive... Well, first of all, there's a massive global call for racial agnostics. There's been a suggestion that the medical device manufacturing companies concentrating on oximetry, and there's some big companies out there, are at risk of litigation in the US because people have been using their devices, which has a racial discriminatory factor. The other thing, this is central. So we all know clinicians, trying to get a oximeter, first on a kid who's wriggling around, secondly on someone who's got Raynaud's or poor circulation, thirdly if someone's hypotensive. So some of the most critical people, you cannot get reliable pulse oximetry, and also peripheral pulse oximetry is delayed. And if you speak to an anaesthetist, they say you can see that someone stopped breathing, but it takes a long time for your finger oximetry to pick it up. Ours is central, and we've got evidence that it works immediately.
Any more questions? Yes, Molly, last one.
So during COVID, a lot of wearable devices became B2C in their business model rather than B2B. How are you thinking about it? Are you going to be selling this into provider hospitals in the first instance, or are you going to start by going direct to patients who feel this discrimination themselves?
We're very much a licensing play. We're not experts in building, we're not wanting to compete with the big device companies. They've already got production lines, marketing. We know that they have to address racial equality. We know they have to address multiple biometrics. We've got it in one site, and so we feel that we give them value, and we feel that we give them all value, so a non-exclusive license, and if everyone needs it.
Amazing. I think once this technology is up and working, it could become the standard for measuring your vitals anywhere on the planet. And you saw it here first today. Electromagnetic induction and now the ear switch. Nick, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Carolina. I'm a consultant gynaecologist and I've worked in the NHS for over 15 years. I want to tell you a little bit of a story about my training, how I got to today. And as a women's health specialist, not once was I ever taught how to prescribe for men versus women. In fact, women were always told that we were in fact little men, or little versions, smaller versions of men. Ooh. And as a result, that's what we were taught. And as a result, we've seen that medical treatment is indirectly been more geared towards benefiting men, shall we say. And there's this huge unmet need. And as a result, women are no longer, it's not this one-size-fits-all approach. And we're missing to have this tailored, targeted approach to women's health. If I give you another example, so women are twice as likely to suffer from a serious drug reaction in comparison to men. And that can be quite serious. So if I take an example, in the US, they've identified over 80 drugs that should be prescribed differently at a different dose for women. So benzodiazepines, for example, women were having road traffic accidents the following morning after taking these medications. And that was because they were taking too large a dose for their body composition. It was staying in their fat cells for too long. So that's why I founded Liberum Health, which was to address these unmet needs. And we have developed an intimate drug delivery system. Essentially, it goes in the vagina and it releases already established drugs. It provides sustained, targeted delivery for women. The device itself is made out of a material that is biodegradable, which means once used, it's removed. It doesn't contribute to microplastics in the environment. So it's a sustainable product as well. And this product also means that you can provide the same delivery of drugs, but at a lower dose to provide the same therapeutic benefit, particularly for pelvic conditions. And our main focus is to look at pelvic conditions where it's often considered taboo. So pelvic pain. Pelvic pain affects 1 in 5 women, of which endometriosis is the most common cause, which affects 1 in 10. So pelvic pain affects over 600 million women, but we often don't like to talk about it. It makes people feel uncomfortable. So, and if I think about the NHS, because that's what's brought us all here today, over 8.2 billion is spent by the NHS in terms of treatment or providing surgery, whatever that may be. And medical treatment is the largest part of that, accounting for about 30%, with NSAIDs being one of the, NSAIDs like your diclofenac, being one of the most important ones. We're also looking at developing treatments for pelvic infections, such as boric acid, so non-antibiotic treatment for bacterial vaginosis, which affects over 150 million women, and that increases morbidity because it's linked to preterm labour and also miscarriage rates as well. So we're looking to raise 3 million, and this is in order to develop. We have a prototype. We've got 2 patents, a patent for the material, which is a novel, which was, we achieved that in April 2022. And we've also filed a patent for the device itself. And now we're looking to standardize the product, register it as a medical device or a combination product with a view to then launching the product. We also see a revenue stream as licensing this device out to other large pharma companies where they could then use it to deliver it vaginally. That would allow them to, in certain instances, expand their own patents because you're delivering it in a novel method, but also allowing them to deliver drugs vaginally, novel treatments that they've got on their back shelves or that they're developing. Thank you very much for your time.
Brilliant. Oh, no, stand there, stand there. Wow, one of the problems, I'm a urology surgeon, okay? One of the problems I've got is that it's really difficult to get people to use the transvaginal route for delivery of medications. A drug delivery platform that allows local high concentration of the active agent near where its target's meant to be. I love it. Hetty?
I love the fact that the last presentation and this one goes to the heart of something I'm passionate about, which is designing for equity. Right, love it. And I love what you're doing. I have absolutely no idea at a business level what your predictions are in terms of what kind of growth you're going to have, what kind of market there is, scale, etc. That's what's missing for me. But love the concept.
I love that. Designing for equity. That's what it should be about completely. Any other comments from anyone? Yes. Viv.
So is this not going to be superseded by pharmacogenomics? So we already know that pharmacogenomics is probably going to be rolled out in the NHS, where it's about individuals and all of our different susceptibilities to particular drugs, which vary enormously. There's huge individual variation.
Yeah, but you can get side effects from them. So side effects are largely due to being metabolized through the gut. For women, if you put it in the vagina, you don't have that problem. So regardless of what the treatment would be, and I see your point, there will be this new personalized piece with genomics. But if you're then able to surpass any of the side effects, it means that women are more likely to be compliant with treatment, have better health outcomes.
To me, it's a drug that it will help target the women even better that need it.
You know, I'm a massive fan, Caroline, of what you're doing. Can you maybe tell us a bit about your go-to-market? Is this going to be something that's patient choice, or is this going to be something you license? How are you going to approach that go-to-market strategy?
So the go-to-market strategy is complicated because of regulation. So we have 2 go-to-market strategies. One is more of a commercial type product, which we know would be easier to get to market, using something like boric acid. There's a randomized controlled trials already about the safety of its use in the vagina. Obviously, it depends on the drug that you're going to put into it, but boric acid would be very more of a simple way to get to market. And that would be once we're registered as a platform device with a view to then launching it in 2025 and then delivering it through large pharmacies, but then also hopefully partnering with NICE and get it, because it's already part of established guidance in the UK as a non-antibiotic treatment. And then in terms of with like diclofenac, you'd obviously have to do a bigger body of work through it. So developing it as a platform device also means that you can license it out. And it is difficult to put revenues because we're still very early stage. So we've demonstrated a prototype, we're able to deliver it, we filed the patents, and now we need to be able to scale it up, register it, and then see where it goes from there from more of a commercial standpoint.
You think you'll be taking some of the device combinations with drugs to market yourselves, or?
I think for some of the more simpler ones like boric acid, diclofenac CBD would be easier. But I think for the antibiotics, I think it's ideally favorably would be to partner with somebody to help you do it where they've got the experience in that area as well.
So what I love about what you're doing is we're now entering year 7 of the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme, and it wasn't until we had 2 nurses and I think 3 midwives step forward did we have a single startup related to addressing the inequality of why women of colour have worse outcomes for childbirth, labour and the antenatal period. It took 3 people with lived experience to step forward. And what I love about what you are, you're a gynaecologist, you're a woman. You're stepping forward saying, we haven't done this before, we can find a better way of doing it. And that's what I really love. So thank you so much.
So I'm Rupi. I've been a doctor in the NHS for over 14 years, and I'm here to talk to you today about my app that aims to improve people's health through better daily nutrition. When I became a junior doctor in 2009, I also became a patient. I was diagnosed with a heart condition, and I was able to reverse that condition through changes to my diet and lifestyle. What I learned during that time was that nutrition has a profound effect on lowering inflammation, improving our gut health, and lowering the risk of diseases that I see every day as a GP. It is true preventative medicine. I've started having more conversations with my patients since then and talking to them about how they can eat to improve their well-being. And that led me to start The Doctor's Kitchen, a social media account where I talk about the evidence base behind eating well. Since then, I've written 4 best-selling cookbooks selling over 200,000 copies. I have a social media audience of over 500,000 and a podcast with 500,000 monthly listeners. But here's the issue. Whilst I have reach, I've realized that I need to be in people's pockets to have impact. There's so much more information about healthy living these days, yet the number of lifestyle-related illnesses is rising. It's costing the NHS over 20 billion per year. And the fact is, it's hard to eat well every day. It's time-consuming. You've got to organise meals. You've got to prepare the ingredients. Healthy food options like meal kits are often overpriced. And people are confused as to what to eat for their particular health needs. And this is where the Doctor's Kitchen app can help people to eat better every day. In the click of just one button, our app will generate a meal plan tailored to you and your family's needs, dietary preferences, tastes, budget constraints, and health considerations. You can also have those ingredients delivered to you for the same price as a normal supermarket shop. Our app essentially will offer a highly personalized and convenient way of eating, shopping, and using food as medicine for you and your whole household. The first iteration of the product that I bootstrapped and launched 12 months ago was only meant to be a proof of concept, but it's generated over 2,000 paying users and annual recurring revenue of £150,000 with no marketing spend. I'm looking to raise £500,000 to build out these features and hire an internal tech team. Our current go-to-market is B2C via my network, and the global market for health and fitness wellness apps is valued at $25 billion, with nutrition apps specifically in the UK and US at 2.5. But there's also an opportunity in B2B, in scaling this across corporate employee well-being, health insurers, gyms, pharmacy chains, and of course, as a solution for NHS patients and their staff. I'm looking for investors who are passionate about prevention. And if you want to change the health of millions of people by shaping what they eat every day, then I'd welcome your interest in potentially investing.
Brilliant, thank you. So important to crack this area. Now, Jens, I don't want to put you on the spot, but your company is actually in the nutrition space, isn't it? I think you're one of the largest providers of, I can't remember exactly what nutritional thing it is to the NHS, but I saw it when I visited your wonderful facilities in Sheffield. What do you think?
Very, very true. Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. It's amazing. I would love to see the app. So first, for the consumer market, I would be interested. What's the difference to other apps which are on the market? This tailor-made approach, I understand. Yeah. But do you think the success will rather come because the app has much more USPs for the customer, or because you are a superstar in the UK, everybody knows you, and you can market it well? Yeah. Which I could believe you certainly can.
Yeah, so there's plenty of competition across different sectors. So there's meal planning apps, there's meal kits, there are other sort of calorie-focused, fitness-focused apps, and there's also, just going to the supermarket and doing the shopping yourself with plenty of recipes out there online. The USP is our evidence base. So we have a PhD and a researcher that's from the Economist Intelligence Unit, and we basically refine all the dietary patterns and ingredients that align with certain health goals. Yes, I'm sort of like launching the product with my current network, but in order for it to scale, it needs to have a brand that lives on its own as we go into different markets. So our sort of USPs are going to be evidence-based, ease, and making it practical to eat well every day.
And last comment, because for patients, I agree, it's super important. The patient need, customer need is absolutely there. So it would be super interesting to learn more at a different occasion, probably, how you can adapt that maybe to patients in hospital or once they're sent home in order to recover sooner and therefore have better patient outcomes.
Oh, I think that was an offer for a second date, as far as I can tell. Jackie.
Yeah, I'm just going to follow up on that. So from an NHS perspective, I've also got estates and facilities, so I've got soft and hard FM. So catering is for my sin one of my things as well. And as I travel around all the different trusts, sometimes I literally wish to weep at the diets that we're feeding patients, especially when I have people, hospitals telling me, well, the kids are sick, so we're giving them comfort food. Yeah. This is the one place where we can educate people. This is the one place where we can send people away. So again, from a branding perspective, how much, I know, of course, you have considered, but if you had that NHS branding in terms of this is what we do in the NHS, this is what we give patients, this is how we send them on the way, wouldn't the general public follow?
100%. So to that point, I did a series of pop-ups at the end of last year across 5 different hospitals, Bradford, Adam Brooks, North Barnet, North Middlesex, where I took over the staff canteen for both patient visitors and staff. We basically fed them healthy foods. We did curries, we did stews, we did pack full of vegetables, and that was really well received, and I worked with Compass to do that. The other thing is the medically tailored meal market is going to be huge. They've already started in the States. They could save up to $13 billion every year. And there were some recent studies that came out of JAMA just at the end of last year as well. So this is a huge area. And I think sending people along with all the other lifestyle things that we already talk about, physio, dance that we saw earlier today, food is the missing part. And we don't really talk about that. And I think this is a big area where the app could have an impact.
I think worth the second date, Jackie, don't you? Oh, come on that date. We'll have the big date.
Oh, good.
Steve, last question.
Yes, Ruby, I'm a big fan. 3, 2, 1.
That was the latest book, 3, 2, 1, by the way, in case you missed
fantastic. Well done, you. One of the questions I've got though is linking it to true science. So you've got the books, you've got the potential with the app. How about linking that app to being able to link to a wearable to monitor in real-time glucose and things like that? Yeah,
definitely.
That's where it needs to be, right?
I think the wearables and investigation market is great. I think what it caters for is that extra 10-15% and actually consistency. And the elephant in the room is the fact that people just simply don't eat enough fruit and vegetables and enough fiber. And that's where I really want to double down on. And the other thing is, I've lost my train of thought, but if you want to come on that date, we can talk about it.
It's going to be a big date if it. Go and take a seat, sir. Well done.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charlene Tang, and I'd like to share with you what we're doing at SciTED to make a difference in the earlier diagnosis of esophageal cancer. Over the past few decades, we have made improvements in patients' outcomes for many types of cancer, but not esophageal cancer. 8 in 10 patients are diagnosed late, when only 20% survive the next 5 years. But for those diagnosed early, over 80% survive those 5 years. And even better, there's a precancerous condition called Barrett's esophagus that can be identified, monitored, and treated at the first signs of early cancer. But unfortunately, too many people never get that endoscopy for that diagnosis. Or if they do, it's too late. And at SciTED, we're changing that. We've developed a non-endoscopic, minimally invasive test for earlier esophageal cancer. It's called the cytosponge test, and effectively a pill on a string device. A patient swallows the pill and the capsule starts to dissolve in the stomach. A couple minutes later, a nurse can retrieve the device, collecting cells all along your esophagus. At the SciTED laboratory, we test those cells and look for signs of early cancer, which we can report and feed back to your clinician with actionable recommendations. All you need is a nurse and an office room at half the cost of an endoscopy. So what have we done so far? With 3 clinical trials and over 2 years of real-world implementation, we have the data and the evidence to show that this works. We've tested over 13,000 patients across the NHS in over 60 hospitals and 8 community-based clinics, with more to come this year. So we've shown that we can find 10 times more people with Barrett's than standard practice in primary care. And in secondary care, we can identify at least 75% of people on endoscopy waiting lists that can actually be safely managed without the need for an endoscopy, and identify the top 15% with suspected cancer or Barrett's that should be fast-tracked for that endoscopy. So altogether, we've shown that in the real world, we can have this impact and make a difference in the earlier diagnosis of esophageal cancer cost-effectively and improve patient outcomes. So what I'm here today is to ask you for your support. We've actually just closed a fundraising round for Series A. Watch this space. So I'm looking for people who can help us in bringing this change that we want to see. I'm looking for people that can help us make this change in terms of pathway transformation and navigating commissioning at a system level, which is no easy feat. But that's what we're doing this year. So I'd like to hear from you if you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. So I'm going to really quickly get the first. It's not the first question; it's the first statement, because I have the advantage of hearing you all pitch, So currently, 85% of people with esophageal cancer present with stage 3 or 4 disease, 15% stage 1 or 2. This can turn that on its head. 85% early presentation, 15% late. Wow. Hetty.
Very quick one. I haven't. Hello.
We can share.
Yeah.
There we go. A very quick one. I haven't got a market for you because I can't offer that. But what I would say is brilliant pitch, clear, not in your face. And one of the big things that gets in the way of companies scaling up is access to markets.
100%.
So come on, guys, reach out and find these guys a clear market.
If you want to be our next hospital or GP practice, let me know.
Does it need to be your lab, or can it be any standard hospital lab to process the cells?
So the test itself is quite specialist. It was designed and developed by a team of clinicians and scientists at Cambridge. So we do it all in-house. We've got the quality assurance and the pathologist to make that report back to you in time.
So I'm just a little bit confused, obviously, because it's a triage tool, it's pre-diagnostic.
Yes.
Are you asking the NHS to bring a screening system in for?
That's a very good question. So now that's what the test was originally developed for 20 years ago when it was first invented. But that's actually not where the clinical need is or has been with the pandemic. So we've first gone in as a triage tool. We've got the data to show it does work cost effectively as a targeted screening tool, and who knows, that might be in our future.
But that would be the big difference.
That would be the big difference. That's where we can proactively find people who are completely lost and unknown to the system. And that's actually where we can effectively find the people who will go on to develop esophageal cancer.
So I'm a clinician. This is a no-brainer. Have you got it?
Yes,
On
I
you?
do.
Quickly, get it. Come on, just show them what it is. I saw them and said, oh, can I put it in the ureter? The number of ureters I have taken out because they're a bit dodgy and I can't be 100% sure, and I have to take the kidney out at the same time because you can't leave a kidney without a ureter. This little swab pulled along your ureter, picking the cells up, the amazing transformation.
Wow. Sorry, Tony, there are lots of people wincing in the room.
Sorry.
Exactly, but compared to an endoscopy, 30 minutes in an office, in and out tops, you're done, you know.
Viv, last one.
So, question for you, how does this fit into the larger landscape of things like Grail coming along?
That's a very good question. So fundamentally, Grail is a blood-based diagnostic test, which is different from ours. We're specific to esophageal cancer, and we've got a specificity and sensitivity of over 90% for Barrett's and esophageal cancer. That's significantly better. So it's not mutually exclusive, but together in a system, the pathway will work.
Good. Thank you very much. Take a seat.
Good afternoon. My name's Sandeep Charan. I'm a consultant surgeon from the University Hospital Sussex, a National Innovation Fellow and the co-founder of Definition Health. Our mission really is to redefine the delivery of surgical care, aiming at communication, education, optimisation and monitoring of patients digitally. The problem we face, particularly here in the UK, but also globally, where we're deployed, is that we have lots of patients. We have a tsunami of patients waiting for surgery, and actually a tsunami of patients waiting to see us in clinics. So we need to educate them, and we need to optimise them, and we need to make them in a better position than they are because they've been sitting at home for the last 2 years. On the other side of the problem is we know about staff shortages. What we don't talk about is the pressure on current staff who are in our hospitals. They are burnt out and they are tired, and we need to help them. And our tool is designed to do that. So our solution is a digital app which basically connects patients to hospitals. It's very secure, and underlying it is a data platform. And through that app, patients can have a virtual journey if they wish, or combined journey, which is what the majority of them have. And what that does is it enables them to complete information about their health at home, get information from us as surgeons delivered to them remotely, and effectively have effective MDT care for any condition that they're under. So it covers all of surgery. For hospitals, by getting that information early, it means that we can change the way we work. We can create efficiencies, increase capacity, and actually save money. The app itself has been used in 21 different sites in the UK. Over 150,000 patients have been through the app, and actually over 5,000 NHS users are registered on the app to use it in those NHS hospitals. Why do they use it? Because of evidence. As a surgeon, I live or die by evidence. I'm sure as Professor Young does. We produce vast amounts of evidence to prove the increased capacity, evidence around deficiency and evidence around the cost benefits. You can look at NHSX Playbook, numerous other peer-reviewed presentations, but probably one of the biggest things we've done in the last 6 months is an SBI grant, so thank you SBI, at Royal Surrey, where we did a lightning strike. Royal Surrey were recovering from COVID. They had paper systems. In 4 weeks, we took their entire surgical service from paper to digital. 9,600 patients treated in 6 months, the fastest recovery time for them as a unit. Patients both digital and digital assist, so we address health inequalities at the same time. Our contracts with those hospitals, all those hospitals, are on a SaaS-based model, 2+1 or 3+1, so we have a stable recurring analysed revenue return, and we continue to grow. So at the moment, we are deployed as a charity in Africa, and we launch in America next month. So our Series A round starts shortly. And at the moment, we're not just looking for investors, but people who believe in our journey as well, people who believe in helping patients and in helping patients improve their care. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. You know, you can keep the mic there. Molly's first there, I think.
So super interesting. Do you work with hospitals that are mostly paper-based, and how do you work and integrate in with existing systems in hospitals that have, for example, more advanced EHRs, etc.?
So the system is completely interoperable. So both paper-based like Royal Surrey, or actually EMR-based. So take Bart's the biggest trust in the country, who absolutely hate Cerner and have moved from Cerner to us as a trust. So that actually they could be more...
EHR?
Sorry?
As the EHR for surgery, essentially?
As the system that they want to use for assessing patients first, then using our virtual ward to follow those patients through. So that in North East London will be Bart's, Newham, Whips, I can't remember the other 3 sites that they are. But Royal Surrey, again, implemented Cerner and moved away from Cerner to us. There are numerous other examples around that.
But you integrate with those EHRs as well?
Absolutely.
Great.
Jackie.
So, I mean, this is the way forward. This is how the NHS has to transform and how we communicate with our patients. But, you know, it's getting a busy space, right? Digital solutions for this are getting busy. And, you know, as we start looking across that whole technical architecture. So I've got 2 questions. First of all is kind of, you know, how are you going to, you're in 21 trusts at the moment, you want to be in 220, right? So what is going to differentiate you? What is your special thing that's going to put you above other providers of this kind of service? And secondly, have you considered, because we're looking obviously at primary care access at the moment, very, very hot topic. Have you considered how when you look forward at your strategy, how you could expand this so it went right from the very beginning of primary care access right the way through the entire patient journey?
Absolutely. So to answer all those questions, I remember all of them in order. First of all, USP is we are actually one of the only solutions that is complete surgery. So from very first visit right through to virtual ward at the end. So we're not siloed solutions. So at the moment, we're talking to one entire NHS region who doesn't want siloed solutions. They don't want multiple logins for multiple patients and multiple apps. And because we integrate with PKB and are talking to an NHS app, it means that patients have single sign-on. Is the first thing. The second thing is, as we generate real-world economic evidence, so supported by KSS, that Royal Surrey paper that's going to be produced independently, an ROI of over 410% in an NHS trust in 6 months is pretty impressive. So as trusts see that number coming through for that volume of patients, they realise the economic value around that, which lots of other apps, and it's just a warning for digital companies, you've got to produce the evidence to show the benefit, which is what we work so hard at. Can't remember the third question. Primary care is important for us, and again, at Royal Surrey and one other trust, we're working to move backwards so the data that's delivered from primary care comes straight into the system. And in fact, we have another grant award from SBI about carbon neutrality in the surgical pathway. As part of that, we're looking to move backwards into primary trust. So all the information is delivered, it produces more efficiencies across the way, reduces carbon and reduces unnecessary transport.
What is the difference between a Formula One pit stop and the MOT that you do for your car every year at the local garage? I'm going to come back to that one in a second. So my name is Omar Naeem Ahmed. I'm a doctor in the NHS and a clinical entrepreneur, and I'm the CEO of AppTrace. And I think we're all here today because we care deeply about the NHS, and the NHS is under more pressure than ever. We are facing ever-rising demand, and we're looking ahead in the future to an aging population and a demographic change that's going to make that even more challenging. So ideally, we want to stop worrying about patients when they're sick enough to end up in hospital or contact their GP, as you mentioned, for a reactive appointment. We want to be proactive. We want to monitor existing disease and identify deterioration as quickly as possible. We want to find 1 in 2 of us who will get cancer as early as possible so treatment can be as effective as possible. And we want to help the 3/4 of us who are going to develop a preventable long-term condition to be on the evidence-based therapy that will prevent that condition from happening. Okay, so nothing controversial there. But ideally, we'd want a doctor to be sitting there looking at you every single day and checking up on everything we know about you and making sure, John, that everything is sorted out and you're getting the right treatment and all of us are getting the right treatment. But that's not possible. This is what we've built with AppTrace. So we've connected into EHR systems, built integrations for 96% of the UK population. We're able to access every disease a patient has, every medication that they're on, every test that's done, every appointment that takes place. We're able to extract that information safely, securely, analyze it against best practice, against NHS guidelines and machine learning algorithms with a UKCA marked medical device. We're able to calculate what every patient needs today and across your entire population, who needs to come in today, who needs what, when. And then we deliver that back to the clinician in a workflow that is consistent with the way that they want to work, whether they're a healthcare assistant, a receptionist, a GP, or anybody else. And so we've delivered that in 30 ICSs, covering 2.7 million patients. And if we delivered it to the rest of the NHS, we would save 30 million primary care appointments a year. Now, how do I know that? I know that because every Monday we analyze all of our practices and we look back and we say, of all the appointments that happened last week, how many people actually had everything that they needed done? And the answer is 1/3. 2/3 of people came in, saw somebody, and then walked out still not having something done, and they're going to need to be brought back in again. So that's the efficiency gap that we're able to tackle. So we've received £5 million in funding, NIHR, Innovate UK, venture capital. We've been trusted by GP surgeries up and down the country. We've recruited a team of some of the world's best doctors and data scientists from industry. And the reason we've been able to get that trust and that traction is because of the opportunity that we can help. And what that means is that we can free up clinicians to actually focus on looking after patients rather than doing mundane, repetitive, error-prone calculations. It means the GP surgeries can be confident that they're delivering evidence-based care for every single patient. It means ICSs can actually understand what's happening across their entire population, what was needed and what was actually done. And the patient, and this is where the Formula One example comes in, wouldn't you want to be monitored by an elite team every day to understand exactly what's going on, to be brought in for that pit stop exactly when you needed it, and when you're being brought in, you know exactly why you're coming in, and you're confident that when you get to the practice, you will have everything done in the most efficient way possible so you can get back on track for your next lap. And that's what we've built today, and I'm looking forward to speaking to all of you, but also all of you, to help deliver this to the rest of the NHS.
Amazing. I was toying with allowing Umar, we had dinner the other night, to show a pit stop from a 1950s Grand Prix where it took 1 minute and 12 seconds for 3 men. One of them had a hammer and a spanner and he was banging this thing on it. I thought, oh, that looks like my GP surgery. And then he showed 20 people descending on a car in 1.2 seconds doing everything and it sped out. And I said, ooh, that's what general practice should be like, shouldn't it? One time you visit, everything that gets done to optimise your healthcare. So I really like this.
And fabulous presentation.
It wasn't really good. Yeah, who wants to go first? Yes, Molly, go on.
Brilliant solution. You know that we're big fans of what you're building. A question I have is, you know, your use case in primary care is clear. How does this transfer into, for example, at an ICS level, your secondary care, your tertiary care, and even nationally?
So what we're doing is we're automating clinical decision-making using data. And that is a huge task if you think about the number of conditions. So primary care is more than big enough to be worried about. But we're also connecting into secondary care and looking at care as it's divided between primary and secondary care, integrating data into secondary care to better look after people safely in primary care and allowing the two systems to talk to each other. Having an objective truth when you talk about population health management to understand exactly what's happening across your entire population, but at a very granular level where you're calculating exactly what each patient needs. And I think that's where you can not just deliver value, but understand what the value is.
Amazing. Any other questions? Right, John, yes.
Well, why didn't you pitch that when I could have invested years back? I don't know, you know. Kind of like, so obviously. But the thing, obviously, I remember a few years back and it's still there. You're amazing what you're actually doing to the GPs, primary practices, but how you're getting paid and how you're actually getting value and how do you do that within the present payment structures?
Yeah, so The amazing thing about this is that it's sort of the holy grail, because not only are we improving care and making doctors' life and clinicians' life easier, we're actually saving money because we're removing a vast amount of duplication. A typical practice will do 8,000 appointments a year. They don't know that, but we can calculate and tell them that. And if you tell them exactly what they need, they probably need about 2,000 appointments a year. So that's the value gap that we begin to deliver on day one. And that's what practices can see. So actually, we're finding that practices themselves are willing to pay us. PCNs themselves are willing to pay us. We don't even need to go to ICSs. But the added value comes when you go to an ICS and you say, this is what your entire patch is doing. This is the variation. This is where training needs to be. This is where resources need to be delivered. And then you add another value stream and potentially another pair on top of that.
Go on, Hetty, quick
Really
one.
quick. The world is littered with innovation that fails because actually the ecosystem is unable to change. And what you're describing is going to require systemic change, I sense, right across the ecosystem. Really, is that going to happen?
I think it has to happen, but I think that this is what we've built, so that, you know, we were told that integration at this level was impossible, that access to data at this level was impossible, that actually taking that data, cleaning it was impossible, or then finding a use case where you could encapsulate it and build a value proposition, which means day one you can deliver something, was impossible. Over the last 4 years, we've proven each one of those things is possible. So I think it is possible and it's necessary, and we're going to do it, and we need all of your help.
So, Hetty, I understand your scepticism, and I would have agreed with it had he not have been on the NHS England Clinical Entrepreneur Programme and had the backing of the world's largest unified healthcare system. If anyone can do it, we can do it. Right, go and sit down,
Yes.
sir. Well done.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Debbie Wake. I'm an NHS endocrinologist and CEO and co-founder of My Way Digital Health. 10% of the world population has diabetes and rising. It consumes 15% of the entire NHS budget. And that's mainly spent treating complications like heart attacks, strokes, kidney failure, all of which are entirely preventable through better patient self-management and through early preventative medical care. My Way Diabetes is a patient-facing digital application and smartphone app. It delivers information, education, and turns electronic health record data and home-recorded data from glucose devices, Fitbits, and other home devices into highly tailored advice for people with diabetes. My Way Clinical is an app for healthcare professionals, providing remote monitoring, decision support, and population-level analytics. We're very different from other diabetes apps. We provide holistic medical management and we cover all types of diabetes. Our USP is the ability to turn data into personalised knowledge through rules, algorithms, and patent-pending machine learning models. We can deliver this for as little as £2 per patient per year. That's about the price of a quarter of a box of glucose test strips. And we can scale it quickly across large regions and even entire countries. My Way Digital Health spun out of the University of Dundee in 2017, but we benefit from 20 years of prior R&D and national platform rollout in Scotland. We're now deployed across about 25% of the UK with over 100,000 patient data registrants and 4 million education users. And we have 70% user retention. We're the #1 diabetes app on Orca with a 93% score. We've got a really strong published evidence base showing clear clinical outcome improvements and an ROI of 5 to 1 in key areas. So if My Way Diabetes was scaled across the whole of NHS England, we would see a minimum cost saving of £100 million in the next 10 years. Business model, we're software as a service, we're B2B, we charge a setup fee and a population-based licence fee. Customers are mainly governments, NHS and large healthcare organisations. Market opportunity is massive. Digital diabetes market is estimated about 20 billion in the US alone, and it's doubling every 2 years. And we've already got an office in Dubai, and we're deploying globally in Malaysia, India, and in the Middle East, where 1 in 4 people have diabetes. So our team, we've now got 47 people in our team. We're turning over about 1.7 million revenue. We've raised 4 million in undiluted project innovation funding, and we've not taken any external investment to date. But we're now looking for a 5 million investment to support international expansion, to support product development beyond diabetes into other long-term conditions. We're projecting a 30 million turnover by 2026, and there's a very strong history of diabetes technology companies exiting, with Livongo in the US having recently sold for £18.5 billion. We have the potential to be global leaders in digital chronic disease management, and we're looking for people interested in investing or indeed just working with us. Many thanks.
Brilliant. Wow, you did that. Thank you so much, Debbie. I think it's the leading diabetes platform, isn't it, in the United Kingdom, in the NHS already?
Yeah, it is.
Mandy, yeah.
I've got to tell you, my first house job was in a diabetic clinic, and I was so concerned about all the patients. I'd spend 20 minutes talking to each of them and get them back in a few weeks, and all their blood sugars went up. They got scared and ate more. But seriously, there was one thing that surprised me. You said your ROI is about 5 times on a £2 per patient per year. Is that an underestimate? Because I'm just thinking about the time it would be, nursing time or doctor's time.
It's a huge underestimate. It's based on HbA1c reduction alone, and we know it does so much more than just reduce people's HbA1c. It reduces their weight, their blood pressure, their cholesterol. We've not taken into account the efficiencies in the service, the reduced emergency appointments, which we've shown through European funding also happens, and the emergency and reduced duplication in testing and all that. So, yeah, I think it's a massive underestimate, but it's what we can clearly publish based on our HbA1c data.
Anyone else want to ask? Yes, John, go on.
Debbie, the amount of information you get in a minute is amazing. Kind of that alone, you should get the 5 minutes. But this looks amazing. It almost looks too good to be true. Basically, come and see people like me afterwards, because I think you're obviously going to be a very good investment target for investors.
Thanks.
That's praise indeed. Jackie, did you want to say something?
So why aren't you across the whole of the NHS?
I was going to ask you that question, Jackie.
Yeah.
Hang on. Is this the second date option? Let's have a conversation.
Actually, for every single one of them, I think we probably need a second date.
We tick all the boxes for the medtech funding mandate, except NICE approval, and we can't get NICE approval because there's not a clear pathway for digital applications to go through NICE. Every other box we tick, I think, for national adoption. So I would love to speak to you about how we do that.
Understood. Thank you.
Good. I'm going to pause it there because we need to get on. Debbie, thank you so much.
It's great to be here. In 2017, my little girl Rosa was born, and my little boy George was born in 2015, and I needed to get the kids out of the house and give Mum a rest. She was really sleep deprived, as I'm sure many of you will be familiar with. And I stumbled across this amazing app called Hoop. And I used it so much over 3 or 4 years, and took the kids to so many amazing things to do and events. And unfortunately, in 2020, it went bust because their revenue model was based on a percentage of booking fees for events. And when COVID hit, all the events stopped. And I was completely lost without this app. We were all stuck indoors in COVID, and it was a pretty tough time. And we all ended up signing up to things like Netflix, which we didn't have before, and Disney Plus and Amazon Prime. And our kids started using iPads and TikTok and all of these things that we know are not really great for our kids to use. And so in 2021, in the late part of 2021, I actually thought about trying to acquire Hoop, and I bought it. I bought the assets and the domain name with the intention to bring it back to the UK because it's that good. So where I'm at right now is we plan to relaunch in 2 months. And I need to get it out to as many people as possible. So I want to get it out to 1 million people. And why do I want to get it out there? Because we're going to have a major health problem in 20 to 30 years if we don't address our kids that are involved in social gaming, on-demand TV, deliveries. Everything's come to us. We have to get our kids outside, active, losing weight, socialising and improving their mental health and building resilience and we need to do it now, and we need to get the parents on these sorts of apps to get the kids doing activities for their health in the future. So I'm asking you, my ask from you or from you guys is, can you try to help me get this out there to 1 million kids? Thank you.
Brilliant. No, you see that? Amazing, huh? When I said this to a number of people, and they said, oh, I've used that and booked things on it, so it's really well known. Hetty.
Okay, 2 questions. One is, how's your business model going to be different so that you don't go bust in 3 years' time? And secondly, why you? What the hell credentials have you got to run something called Hoop?
So the original company raised about £6.5 million and employed 45 people. So it was a big app. They were spending a lot of money, and so they went bust. My revenue model is different. So we're going to charge organisers about £1 to list each event on the app. And there'll be a subscription model. So big event organisers will have a subscription model where they pay a monthly fee and they can list a certain number, they get credits and they list a certain number of events or camps or classes. So for example, we've got GLL Better, the leisure centre provider, want to list 600 events a week. Monkey Music, Baby Century, Mini First Aid, and dozens of other organisers. We've got a database, about 30,000 organisers want to list. We've got at least 1,500 that want to list on the app.
And who are you? Why are you?
My name's Tim Allardyce. I'm a physiotherapist. I work half a day in a long COVID clinic in Lewisham, and I do 1.5 days of musculoskeletal care. I believe that I'm the right person to bring this because I'm really passionate about kids' health and people's health generally. Yeah.
And you run... hang on. And you run a multi-million-pound physio business that you founded yourself. Yes?
Yeah, we employ...
Thank you. Right. This is his give back, and we should make it work. Steve, did you want a quick question?
Tim, I was just quickly, Tim. I was just wanting to get a feel for your revenues, year 1, 2, 3. If we would invest today, and what the EBITDA or the profit would look like, 1, 2, 3.
I really have absolutely no idea. I'm not actually sure, and I'm not very good at forecasting. I've got some numbers in my head, but I think realistically that if we could get 100,000 events a week on here, which is possible, and we charge in about £1 or maybe a little bit less, I think we could turn over. I think it could be fairly big, a few £1 million a year, possibly.
Is it global or just UK?
It could really be global. I think it could be massive. I think it will definitely be big in the UK, but I'd love to take it wider, especially to the States.
So I haven't done a business planning session with him yet, but there's just some ingredients in here that go to me. It's like the conversation, Jackie, you and I had about Greg Wallace the other day and what he's doing. There's some ingredients in it. I don't know how it will list out. Anyway, go and take a seat. You've done well.
Thanks.
My name is Nick Pryor. I'm a junior doctor working in the NHS, training as a psychiatrist. I'm also the co-founder and CEO of Mindful, a mental health startup. I'd like to start today with a brief summary of a patient that I have got to know very well. Diagnosis, bipolar disorder. First episode in his early 20s. Impact, lost jobs, lost relationships, lost confidence. But through a process of trial and error and over a period of 10 years, he discovered a long-term and sustainable way forward. This included biological interventions, primarily medication, lithium, quetiapine, venlafaxine. It also included psychological interventions. For example, cognitive behavioural therapy, where he learnt the tools of reflective practice and how to apply SMART goals into his daily life. And last, but by no means least, social interventions, things that he did on a daily basis at home, breath work, doodling, reading, swimming, regular exercise, looking after himself. So by the end of this, He had discovered his very own mental health routine that worked for his unique mind. Now, you might well be asking yourselves, why do I know this patient so well? Well, the truth is, I am that patient. It is my lived experience of bipolar, combined with listening to thousands of patients, that made me realise that I was not alone. We all have a mental health routine, subconscious or conscious, whether we've had a mental illness or not. With that in mind, I just want to ask you all, actually, just for a few seconds, just to reflect on what you do to look after your mind. And it might not be very much. Ooh. So this is the problem. Most people's mental health routines are unloved, unproven, and lacking in diversity. At Mindful, we are solving that problem. We want to create Spotify for the mind, an array of thousands of different interventions across biological, psychological, and social areas that allows people to go on a journey of discovery where they are empowered and guided by us to discover their very own mental health routine, or what you might call a mind list. Our app now has launched with over 100 social interventions on iOS and Android. We're testing in healthcare, education, and workplace settings. And we plan to close a seed round by the end of this year. One last point. I want to step back for a second and just remind everyone in the room how big this problem is. The total addressable market globally is in the trillions. And over the next 5 years, it is projected that the compound annual growth rate will be above 5%. And to really bring it home, let's just remember that 1 in 3 of us will experience a significant mental health problem at some point in our lives. That's 100 of us in the room today. Why do I bring it back to all this big problem? Because we do recognise at Mindful that we cannot do this alone. This is a problem that we will be battling for the next 5-10 years, and we really hope to bring you on that journey.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nick. First of all, if you're in the late night session tonight, you will hear me talk about the courage it takes to step forward. And you showed real courage to share your journey. And if people... And if people like you don't step up and step forward, and they're not supported like people like me and Jackie and everyone else here, then, well, what is the point of it all, frankly? We need to help you do this. Right, who's got any? Yes, Hetty.
Sorry, quick one. Okay, disclosure, I'm a trauma survivor. I'm a big believer. Thank you for telling your story. I spoke to a bunch of leaders a week ago saying we've got to get serious about trauma. All of this is so important. I want you to succeed. What's the single biggest thing that would make the difference?
Yeah, I mean, for us at the moment is I think what actually listening to people who are further ahead of me in the programme, it's this ability to actually prove outcomes and return on investment. So getting access to pilots and basically also just ensuring that we have a long enough runway to invest properly in the tech. I think it's naive to assume that a digital-only solution will suddenly start changing people's behaviours. It's how you integrate that into pathways that already exist.
I mean, I love Spotify for mental health. And Hetty, you're so well connected into the Ministry of Defence. Mental health is a big issue. And Jackie, you were the head of procurement for the MOD. Yep. It's a big issue, isn't it? I think maybe a connection to Tim Hodgetts and talk to the guys there. Yeah. So, Randy, go on.
Is this B2C or B2 doctor or both?
So at the moment, it's primarily B2B. That's where we've managed to find the most revenue. I didn't go into the detail because I felt my pitch was more about the idea today. But yeah, we've got 100K of contracted revenue B2B. And that's because that's where the money is at the moment. And actually, we can use the business environment as a platform to learn about the product. But the long-term vision is for it to be direct to consumer.
One last one, then we must stop.
I see brilliant examples of digital solutions for mental health pitching all the time. And actually what's interesting is you could potentially aggregate them all and present them to a patient in obvious ways. So how are you going to appeal to all of the amazing startups trying to solve different vertical points in mental health solutions?
Are you suggesting he is the Amazon platform for mental health? Is that what you were saying, Molly?
There's a brilliant article in a blog called Stratechery around aggregation theory and how you can actually really be a unique player for the patient. So how do you work with lots of portfolio companies or startups to engage them in your tool?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be difficult creating that critical mass where you have enough, that breadth. Ultimately, we want to have thousands of interventions on there, whether they're social or medical. I think the reason, that's where you've got to be the most credible, the most interesting, and also the most consumable. So one big focus that we have relative to most mental health startups is that we did actually originally start direct to consumer. My co-founder is a creative in advertising previously at Saatchi & Saatchi. So we've got this kind of consumer edge to us. So I think that's going to be very important.
Yeah, one thought is actually working with some of the AHSNs to help to work with those startups to give them their evidence. So actually, if you can have a small cohort of patients that want to engage with your brilliant consumer front end, you could actually pitch to the startups that will give you a case study of users that love your product.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, listening to everyone else, I'd love to have a few of these on my platform.